You push through your day with caffeine just to make it through, but you're not feeling like you're necessarily thriving. You're kind of stuck in just surviving and getting through the day. Your mind might be racing, your patience is growing thin, and the smallest things that didn't used to bother you can really set you over the edge. Maybe you're noticing that you're waking up in the middle of the night, somewhere between 2 and 3 a.m. Maybe a lot of times your heart is racing or you feel like you're panicking for absolutely no reason. And maybe you're craving things like carbs and sugar, or drinking more water than you've ever drank and still feeling like you are wildly thirsty. Does this sound familiar? Well, in today's video, I am going to reveal the cortisol trap, how it's zapping energy from your body and wasting away your adrenals, and what we can do to restore balance naturally. Welcome back to Dr. Brittany, your other doctor, where I help you to decode your blood work so that you can manage dis-ease in your body from a root cause perspective. My name is Dr. Brittany Arts. Let's get started. Many doctors only test one sample of cortisol when they're deciding whether you have issues with your adrenals. However, one value for cortisol is never enough. In fact, it really matters what time of day we're testing your cortisol. Other hormones that we want to make sure we're looking at are things like DHEA, which is also an adrenal hormone and happens to be a precursor to cortisol. We also want to look at things like testosterone. Testosterone, DHEA, and cortisol will all be low with a global adrenal fatigue. When it comes to time of the day that we're testing these hormones, it matters that we're looking at a morning cortisol value at the very least. That's going to tell us where your cortisol levels are between about 6 and 8 in the morning, which is when they should be the highest. Your body produces cortisol all night long while you're sleeping, and it's what wakes you up in the morning, so that's the peak that we're looking for. But just one value in the morning may not be enough. Depending on your symptoms, your doctor will want to look for a salivary cortisol level all throughout the day. That can tell us what your pattern looks like and whether your circadian rhythm is working appropriately. If you're dealing with chronic fatigue, insomnia, irritability, panic attacks, you are going to want to ask your doctor to do a full adrenal panel. If your cortisol is only being tested once, especially if it's not being tested in the morning, you may be missing the bigger issue. Chronic stress isn't just about being overwhelmed. It literally rewires your brain and your nervous system. There are two main types of stress that can trigger an imbalance in your adrenals. The first kind of stress is external stress, the things that we typically think of when we talk about, I'm so stressed today. That's your partner or your children or your job or your other responsibilities that are putting pressure on you and making you feel that external stress. Then there are sources of internal stress, and this is the one that a lot of doctors miss, and a lot of times patients aren't even aware that their bodies are creating internal stress. Internal stressors can be things like low blood sugar or hypoglycemia. If you're not eating often enough, and if you're not eating vegetable fiber to stabilize your blood sugar, you can be going through really low lows. Other things that trigger internal stress are things like autoimmune conditions, or really anything that causes inflammation on the inside. Other internal stressors like food sensitivities, which create a lot of inflammation in your gut, can contribute to adrenal fatigue as well. So many people assume when they're really stressed that they must have really high cortisol levels. And initially, that's true. To be honest, I would so much rather see a high cortisol level on my patient's blood work because that tells me at least their adrenals are working. Oftentimes, however, chronic stress is going to lead to low cortisol levels, low DHEA, low testosterone. And that's a sign that your body has been under stress for such a long period of time without the help that it needs, that your adrenals are actually kind of tapping out. Identify your biggest external and internal triggers if you can, and start doing something about them now to help your adrenals repair. Cortisol burnout doesn't happen overnight. This is something that takes time. Your stress response isn't just about hormones. It's about your nervous system getting stuck in survival mode. mode. Let's talk about how that happens. Initially, you have an adrenal response that produces enough cortisol to manage your external and internal stressors. But over time, when your adrenals are deficient and they aren't producing enough cortisol, our body needs some kind of backup mechanism to perform all of the functions that cortisol would normally perform for us. That means we have to rely on something called adrenaline. Adrenaline should be reserved for fight or flight mode. But if we have low cortisol and we have adrenal fatigue, we may end up running off of adrenaline a lot more than we think. This puts your body in a constant state of fight or flight. This is why you end up waking up in the middle of the night, because your body thinks it's running from a bear at 3 a.m. when it doesn't have enough cortisol to stabilize your blood sugar. It's going to use adrenaline instead. Adrenaline can help raise our blood glucose levels, which is important for physiology, but all of that adrenaline circulating in your system is going to make you feel like you are in survival mode. Your body is going to dump sugar out into your bloodstream so that you have enough to run from that bear, but you're just trying to sleep at 3 in the morning and you're wondering, why am I waking up feeling wide awake and perhaps even vibrating with a really racy heart? Your brain is going crazy, your thoughts are ruminating. You're like, where did this come from? I fell asleep fine, I was asleep, and now I'm wide awake at 2 or 3 in the morning and I absolutely cannot get back to bed. That's what happens when your adrenals are fatigued. Now, that adrenaline response doesn't just happen at night. Throughout the day, if you're still exposed to these external and internal triggers, your body is going to have to rely on something to manage that stress. If you don't have enough cortisol all day long, your body is going to be constantly calling upon that adrenaline response, and you are going to feel like you're in survival mode all day long. I often describe this feeling as angst. You're kind of always on the edge of a breakdown. You feel like the smallest things are going to overwhelm you. Maybe it'll bring you to tears. Maybe it'll make you really angry. Maybe your whole body starts shaking. Those are signs that your body is in distress, that it can no longer mount an appropriate stress response because your adrenals are just totally exhausted. These are my patients who have kids, and their kids are playing, and maybe one of them yells a little too loud, or the baby is screaming, and you're just like, oh my gosh, I can't handle this right now. And you feel guilty. These are my moms who are constantly making themselves feel so guilty over the way that they feel when their kids are overwhelming them. Or maybe this is you with crazy road rage. Somebody cuts you off on the highway, and normally you'd be able to deal with that, but this time you're like ready to stop your car and get out and start beating somebody up. That response is hormonal. That's a result of adrenal exhaustion. When you get into this mode, into this survival mode, your body gets stuck in fight or flight. So bringing you back from the brink of adrenal exhaustion is not just about your hormones. It becomes really important that we figure out how to rebalance your nervous system. And that looks a little different for every person. If you feel wired and tired, your body is most likely running off of adrenaline and not its primary energy source. If stress is ruining your life, I've created a free guide on how to manage internal inflammation, like autoimmune conditions, maybe just brain fog, fatigue, feelings of being overwhelmed, digestive issues. All of those things are in my guide so that we can address them from a root cause perspective. Download my autoimmune guide now. Let's break free from this cortisol trap. One of the first things I want you to do is evaluate your sleep hygiene. You may be feeling wired and tired at night, but there are some things that we can do to help you wind down. Use things like blue light blockers. Our body will naturally look at the types of lights that are in our environment at night as almost sunlight. Our body will stay awake when we're exposed to those lights, so blue light blockers can help to increase our melatonin and decrease our cortisol. Certain types of magnesium can also help us at night, not the kind of magnesium that makes you go to the bathroom, but the kind that are in supplements like MagCalm that you can get easily at most of your stores. I like to mix it with a little bit of warm water, drink it as a tea at night, and it really helps to calm down your nervous system. Magnesium is a cofactor for most of the enzymatic processes that happen in our nervous system. So that can act as a nervine and really calm things down for us. Other things that we can do is make sure that we're not engaging our brain at night. Leave your phone in a different room. Don't watch TV when you're in bed. Have some kind of bedtime routine that looks similar to what you would do for an infant that you were sleep training. Give yourself a bath with Epsom salts. Maybe rub a little bit of lavender lotion on yourself. Really get yourself cozy, wrap yourself in your favorite blankets, and soothe yourself to bed. Meditation can help with this as well. Balancing blood sugar is one that not many people associate with adrenal exhaustion or an adrenaline response. But since blood sugar control is such a huge part of what our adrenals do and a huge responsibility of cortisol, we can really help ourselves if we work hard on stabilizing our blood sugar. One of the best things that you can do before bed is eat a bedtime snack within 60 minutes of going to sleep. I know we've all been taught, don't eat after 6 p.m., don't eat after 7 p.m. Well, for patients who are in an adrenally exhausted state, that's one of the worst things that you can do. Your body needs to have as many sustainable calories in your system as possible when you go to sleep so that it doesn't have to mount an adrenaline response to stabilize your blood sugar. This will really give your adrenals a rest. Focus on a well-rounded bedtime snack. I don't want you reaching for a handful of nuts or a little bit of popcorn or a fruit. That's one of the worst things that you can do. I really want you to focus on eating a well-rounded meal that includes a protein and a vegetable fiber. The types of vegetables that I'm talking about are not things like carrots or cucumbers or peppers or onions, none of those, just because they don't contain the same kind of fiber that will help to make sure that your blood sugar stays stable at night. I really want you to focus on like your cruciferous vegetables, things like broccoli and Brussels sprouts. Sprouts in general are a really great option. Good sources of lean protein like chicken or turkey or really good grass-fed, grass-finished meat. And have some of those, even if it's just a couple of bites of your dinner that you saved for before bedtime, have a little bit of that food before you go to bed, and you'll be really surprised how much better you sleep. This tip seems pretty obvious, but if you're already stuck in an adrenaline-based state, if your body already thinks that you're surviving and it's amped up and it's antsy, one of the worst things you can do is provide it with stimulants. Caffeine actually forces your adrenals to work overtime. So it can increase the demand for cortisol. But if your adrenals can't produce enough, you'll end up having to rely back on that backup mechanism, which is that adrenaline response. That is going to make you feel doubly stimulated. So you've got things like caffeine and you've got tons and tons of adrenaline in your body, and you are just gonna throw yourself into a panic attack all day long. One of the worst things you can do with adrenal fatigue is continue to use stimulants to keep yourself awake during the day. It may be difficult to imagine giving up things like coffee when you're feeling so tired when you wake up in the morning, but it is absolutely essential to giving your adrenals the rest that they need. Instead of swapping out for something else that produces energy, think about herbs like adaptogens instead. Holy basil or rhodiola or ashwagandha can be really great options to help to modulate the stress response in your body. But it's also nice to just give caffeine a rest in general, especially if you have autoimmunity, since it can actually push the part of your immune system that's already overactive. It may be difficult to get off of caffeine for the first couple of days, but if we support you from a root cause perspective and we use things to help to stabilize your adrenals, like stabilizing your blood sugar and getting really good sleep, you'll notice that you can rely on those stimulants less and less throughout the day. This tip is really hard for my workout junkies, but working out in the morning on an empty stomach, especially a high stress workout, is absolutely the worst thing you can do for adrenal fatigue. Your body is waking up in an adrenaline-based response already in the morning. You already didn't have enough blood sugar control overnight. Now you've got adrenaline trying to keep your blood sugar stable, and then you go and you do a workout on an empty stomach that puts an incredible demand on your nervous system. This is going to keep you in fight or flight mode, and it's also going to lead to a lot of hypoglycemia. I always ask my patients who are big into working out in the morning to take a break while we're going through adrenal repair. This is a hard thing to imagine. A lot of my patients tell me that their workouts are part of their coping mechanisms. They may not use that word, but they'll tell me, well, this is how I manage my stress. We have to learn how to manage stress in a healthier way. And I know that that sounds like such an oxymoron, but overworking out can be the same type of negative coping mechanism as drinking or doing drugs or gambling. If it's still having a negative effect on your system, on your particular body, if it is damaging for you, then it is not a good coping mechanism. Also, my overworker outers tend to be patients who are suppressing a lot of their feelings in general. If that's your go-to, if you're constantly staying busy with working out or cleaning the house or work or other types of activities so that you don't have a minute to sit and rest and think and be with yourself, a lot of times that can be a sign that there are some deeper emotional issues that we're avoiding. Cortisol imbalance isn't about managing your hormones. It's about teaching your body to handle stress in a different way. Now you know what the cortisol trap is and why it makes you feel stuck, and the best strategies to break free, repair your adrenals, and restore your energy. Step 1, identify your biggest stress triggers, whether they be external or internal, and start finding ways to reduce those. Step number 2, make a small change to start getting back on track, whether that's reducing caffeine, stabilizing blood sugar with more nutrients and healthier meals, or reducing stimulants throughout your day, especially things like blue light, and getting better sleep. Step number 3, download my free cortisol reset guide and get started. Healing is possible when you give your body the right tools. I always tell my patients, help yourself, help yourself. Want to take even greater control of your health? Watch my next video for powerful strategies to help reduce stress, balance your hormones, and restore your energy. Click here and I'll see you there.